What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a brand new edition of Holding Court here on the First State Hoops Report YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, First State Hoops Report, founding editor Chris Stevens. Hope you all are doing well out there. Hope you are ready for a strong 2023. Welcome to the new year. Happy New Year, if I haven't wished you guys that already. Hope you all had a great holiday vacation. Those of you who weren't playing basketball, those of you who were, hope y'all get some rest because their season really starts to pick up once we get back in school on January 3rd. This episode, we're not going to get too much into the tournaments. Obviously, I was able to watch. I gave myself 2 weeks off. I'm not going to lie to you guys. After what happened Tuesday at the field house, the previous Tuesday, not this Tuesday past, but Tuesday before, I said I'm going to take a break. Just give myself some time to, recalibrate and get myself ready for the more important stuff, which is, of course, in-conference play, non-conference play between teams in state. So I wanted to get focused on that. So I gave myself a break. Sometimes you got to give yourself a break in life. When you're working as a student, you just got to step back and say, whoa, calm down, relax, recenter, do all that good stuff. And that's what I spent most of my holiday break doing because my job gave us 2 weeks off with pay. So it would have been foolish for me to just go running around when I literally just needed the time to just reset myself and rededicate myself to the things that I feel are important. And this is still important to me. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, not going to deal too much into that. Anyway, this episode, we are going to preview conference play, which is really going to start picking up now that everyone has played in She Got Game, Shore Games, Diamond State, Governor's Challenge, and played really well. Delaware really held it down against teams from New York, New Jersey, Virginia, D.C., Maryland. You got to be really happy if you're a basketball fan in this state to know that our kids can play just as well against teams from these quote-unquote powerhouse places, which is why we should really just be banging the drum on things that are important and that will help our kids improve even more, which brings me to our first topic of discussion. You ready? Okay. Shot clock. Aziz Ali, head coach of Middletown. We went to Howard High together. He was the point guard when Howard won Flight B in 2000 and made it to the Final Four. I graduated in 99. I'm a year ahead of him. So this tells you how old we are. Sorry, coach. But he tweeted after Middletown won their bracket. They won their bracket in the Governor's Challenge, by the way. Congrats to the Cavalier boys. He said, I'm on board with the shot clock because when we did a piece back in May of 2021, when the National Governing Board of High School Sports said, we are going to give each state the option to put a 35-second shot clock in. And 13 states already had it. A few more will be adding them as time goes on. So when I asked Coach Ali about it back in May of 21, he said he wasn't sure because, it was an added expense and that you had to have an extra person running that clock as well as the scoreboard and the book. And after the Governor's Challenge, he was like, you know what? We need a shot clock. And I was like, yes, we got somebody else on board because this is a shot clock fan account. It is. And so I decided on the spur of that moment to run a quick Twitter poll, which ended yesterday. And 87% of 61 people who voted on Twitter said that, yes, Delaware high school basketball needs a shot clock. We took the matter to Instagram as well to get some comments. And we also got some comments and feedback on the Twitter poll from a couple of folks. Pat Woods, the Cape girls basketball coach, he's always been a strong proponent of it. When I talked to him back in May of 21, he's still very much on board with that. When it talks about preparing kids, he talks about preparing kids for the next level and that it, lends itself to game strategy. And a counterpoint to that was made by Monty Heyman, the Tower Hill boys assistant, says that it takes planning out of the game and it also means that upsets aren't as plentiful because he pointed out that when Villanova beat Georgetown for the men's title in 1985 in the NCAAs, that there was no shot clock. Then again, there wasn't a shot clock when North Carolina State beat Houston in Five Slamma Jamma in 1983. So, yeah, that's a fair point. Two more fair points come from my fellow journalist, Chuck Durrani, the head of DSBA, and John Busby, one half of the Dynamite Delaware High School Football Sports Podcast, says, It's an added expense. And yes, I agree that while we are dealing with a lot of, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for here? Give me a minute. I'll think about it. I'm not going to take a whole minute, but I'm just going to come up with something off the top of my head. I know we're dealing with a time of, I guess, recession. Yeah, recession definitely affects everything from housing to automobiles to school resources. But I do want us to start thinking creatively and start being fair to every sport. Like if we can do things for football, like turf fields, if we can add turf fields for football, soccer, field hockey, we can add lights for football. We can put volleyball on center stage and have, championship games broadcast and all of that. We can do the same for basketball. We absolutely can. And I want people to start thinking a little more clearly about why basketball always gets the short end of the stick. And I'm not putting any ideas in anybody's head. I'm just asking y'all to come to your own conclusions. My conclusions are not going to be the same as yours. Yours are not going to be the same as mine. But as someone who has watched this game in this state for 30 years plus, the facts are the facts. Like if there's always something being cut back, it always has to be basketball. And that's the strangest thing because basketball for the longest time carried this state. And I'm not saying football didn't, obviously, but now that we've gotten, the Olympic sports a little more, publicity, a little more cachet, it feels like everyone's just like, oh, wow, we can just, basketball gets too much attention. And it's like basketball is probably one of the most underfunded sports in the state. That's why you have such a huge separation between the haves and the have-nots. Like the private schools like the Sanfords, the Salesianums, the Caravels, the St. Elizabeths, the St. Mark's, the Tower Hills, like they can welcome players in because they get, they have the opportunity, they have the advantage of resources. Not every public school has that. And granted, the public school thing, which is something I could probably talk about for days and years on end, I'll probably end up dedicating one good segment to it down the line. Probably not. Probably, I may do it next week. That may be another journalism new media 101 with a history lesson involved. In fact, that's exactly what it's going to be. So stay tuned for that next week. But I want us to start understanding that basketball deserves just as much love and attention and resources as football, baseball, softball, everything else. Let's be fair. And saying that a shot clock is an added expense, it's a fair point, but it also sounds like an excuse to some extent. Because if we have kids that are playing college basketball, not just any old college basketball, we have D1 athletes, several in fact. Why are we not preparing the kids coming behind them for what our current D1 athletes are already experiencing? That's the question. And the shot clock, and people will say that it really doesn't shorten the game that much. Not everybody runs around, but there's still some stall ball going on. It's just not as plentiful as it once was. But yeah, there's still some stall ball going around. I've been to a couple games where teams have just been like, it's like, this ain't basketball. I'm sorry, it's not basketball. And I mean, I get that you have to do what you need to do in the heat of battle to win, because the object of Herman Edwards, the former Philadelphia Eagles safety, the Jets coach, the Chiefs coach, the Arizona State coach said it best. You play to win the game. So got to do what you got to do to win. And I get it. But at the same time, this doesn't prepare any kid with college aspirations for the college game. It just doesn't. So I want people to start thinking clearly about why we always want to, shortchange basketball, like why every game in the public schools has to start at 4:45-ish. When back in the day, 7 o'clock was the normal start time. Girls had an assigned day. Boys had an assigned day. And the two never mixed. But now you have to pick. And that's tough on us as media people because we want to get to see everybody. And we can't see everybody, especially now that our resources are already, kind of handcuffed a little bit because of, people scaling back and different organizations, just getting in on the ground floor and not having the resources to hire new talent and, new media people and send them to different games, kind of split up. as the old Mystery Inc. Scooby-Doo thing would go, let's split up, gang. We don't have that option. So we have to pick a game a night for the most part. And that's difficult to do. And that means, you're going to have, people saying, oh, well, you didn't see my kid. Oh, you didn't see my team. And it's like, well, we got to pick. And, you just got to go. You got to pick what's best and pray for the best. So I think for basketball, really being shortchanged as much as it is, that's an issue that everyone has to, kind of step back and have a thought about, why are we so okay with neglecting basketball, but we can give football every opportunity to get right. We can give the Olympic sports every chance to do what they need to do to be seen. Like, why can't we do the same for basketball? Just wanted to put that out there. On to the next subject, the most important subject of today's episode. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, the official opinion of First Day Hoops Report is yes, Delaware High School basketball needs a shot clock. Desperately. Speeds the game along, makes for more shooting, makes for more scoring, and it doesn't have everybody just shot clock. Delaware needs one badly. Okay, conference play now. Last year's conference races really weren't all that interesting except for a couple of spots. And I think it's more of the same this year, honestly. When you look around, there's some definite separation in each conference and division as you go down the list. And we will go down said list because we are prepared. We're always prepared. We'll start with the boys. Flight A, I feel like Middletown and Apple are definitely the favorites. Middletown, of course, won their bracket at the Governor's Challenge. Apple played very well at the Viking Invitational this week. Those are the two favorites, but I tell you now, William Penn and Mount Pleasant are the teams that everyone should watch for, not just from a Flight A perspective, but a state tournament perspective. Gary Lumpkin, of course, one of the great basketball players in the state of Delaware, has turned out to be a pretty darn good coach. And, it's not like he has the talent he did when he was playing. It was him, Tail Davis, Lenny Brown, Rasan Matthews Sr., folks like that. It's not like, this Penn team is imposing, but this Penn team plays very well on defense. They run and gun when they need to. They have shooters. They have post players. They're going to be a tough out. Mount Pleasant, meanwhile, same as it ever was, even with, even under Lisa Sullivan, now under Brian Hines, depth is their strongest attribute. And they have a post player. Darnell Lloyd, 6'8", sophomore. I saw him play the opener at McCain, and granted, you can glean only so much from a game that ended up, in about a 50-point route. But that kid, he's one of those guys that, once he put some muscle on, put some meat on his bones, he's going to be one of those ones that everybody watches out for. He's got 2 more years to grow. He can dunk easily, which, of course, at 6'8", that's what you hope for. But he blocks shots, he rebounds. And Mount has any variety of guards to go to. There's Naeem Scott. There's Ronnie Potts III. There's Damir Bird. That team has guys that can just get you a bucket whenever you need a bucket. So and Mount is 6-0. So just beware of the Green Knights. I'm not saying that, they're a state championship contender yet. But that's a team that everybody should be very mindful of coming down the pike. Flight B feels like it's just 2 teams at this point. Howard and AI. Odessa could be the wild card, though. That's a young team that, of course, played 9th and 10th graders last year. Those kids are 10th and 11th graders this year. And they're already about halfway to the amount of wins they had last year. So Odessa gets a test right away because they're at Howard on Thursday, January 5th. So that'll be a good marker for how good that Odessa team is. Howard, meanwhile, Rasan Matthews has the luxury of going to any particular line. Like, he has probably maybe 6 or 7 lineup combinations that could do the work that Howard needs done. And that's a lot more than you can say for most teams, probably save for Middletown or Sally's or Seaford. And that team, I don't know if they'll be a repeat Final Four team, but they'll definitely be in the conversation. Absolutely. AI, they still have a lot of talent. They played Howard really tough last year in the de facto Flight B championship game. I expect that to be the same this year. I feel like AI has a lot more in terms of team play this year. That'll probably take them a little further in the state tournament because they were eliminated by Laurel last year, and it just looked like they were just like playing one-on-one. I don't get that sense this AI team is a one-on-one team. So I feel like they may not win Flight B, but I think they'll probably win a tournament game or two. Independent conference, boys. Tower Hill, of course, defending state champions, looking every bit the role. Tatnall has played strong early, won a couple of tournaments out of state. Sanford, of course, really strong team. Got Tommy Vaughn on the squad now. They have Chris Stanford at center. I forgot Jordan's last name already. That stinks. Let me look that up right while I'm sitting here. See, that's the beauty of recording live. Well, not recording live, but recording. If I want to go back and edit this, I can, but I'm not going to edit because I believe in being honest with your mistakes. And granted, I don't make many mistakes. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying, just simply true. Jordan Spencer. It just came to me before I could even pull up Sanford's roster. Jordan Spencer is their long-range threat. They have a lot of talent on that team in Sanford. Ty Perry is doing a good job, creating his own culture, which is similar to Stan Waterman's culture when Stan was coaching. So I feel like Sanford and Tower are the two teams to look out for. Absolutely the independent conference favorites. Those two will play each other twice within the span of 4 weeks. So we find out how good they are against each other real quick. And that's always a good thing. Diamond State boys, meanwhile, St. E, Conrad, Archmere, definitely your favorites. Conrad has a 1-2 punch that most teams would kill for. That is Kelsey Epps, the senior, and Jalen Horsey, the junior. When those two are on a roll, there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. The thing is just getting them to do it together, because there'll be one game where Epps goes off, and there'll be a game where Horsey goes off. I saw Jalen scored 32 against John Carroll down at the Fieldhouse, and 24 of those came in the second half, 15 in the fourth quarter. Like, they just looked for him on every possession, and he came up big on every possession. He kept Conrad in that game by himself. But if you can get Epps and Horsey working together in concert, Latrell Wright's another great young player, as their point guard. If he can, give them some buckets, Conrad's going to be a tough out. Archmere, meanwhile, they are still trying to get out of the football mode, because mostly everybody on that team probably saved. I don't know if Matt McCarthy played football or not, but I know Chris Albero was the do everything for the Archmere football team, and he's also one of their best basketball players. So getting Albero and his teammates in basketball shape is going to be tough, but they'll be a team to watch out for. St. E, of course, still a lot of talent, even though we are now having the pleasure of watching Jeremiah Stewart-Herring do his thing up in Philadelphia. St. E's still going to be a very tough team. They should win a fair share of games. I feel like they'll probably be one of those teams that ends up getting a bye, one of the last two or three byes in the first round at some point. DMA, they're lurking, of course. Anthony Wright is over there as the coach now. They have some talent to look out for, but the three that I feel like have the best chance of making the state tournament from Diamond State are St. E, Conrad, and Archmere. Henlopen North. This is the one where you could possibly see that it's not going to be decided until the final week of the season. Poly's already beaten Dover. That's a huge upset, honestly, in my mind. Cape Henlopen looks very strong in the early going as well. Smyrna, probably going to pick up some momentum after as well as they played in the Governor's Challenge. Those are your top four. And any one of those top four could win the North. So don't tie your cart to one horse in particular. Just watch the horses before you tie the cart together, because either one of the four teams that I mentioned could win the North, not fairly easily, but they'll do it in a way that, kind of looks like, oh, wow, this team might actually be good long term. And I'll tell you right now, Kate was the surprise, because Steve Reed is a talented coach. Don't get me wrong, but I felt like I didn't know what Kate was coming back with. And then, they have kids returning, and then Ty Tolson, who played at Dover last year, is at Cape now. And Ty's one of the better shooters in the state. Don't leave him open. I mean, you can, but it's not a good idea. So, when those kids are on a roll, that's a tough team to beat. Smyrna is always well coached, because Andrew Mears is one of the best coaches in the state, boys or girls coach. And they may not have the same level of talent, but they're going to be very disciplined. They're going to play smart, and they will still turn up with an athlete every once in a while, as Obi Coleman showed us down at the Governor's Challenge when he dunked on that young man in the game that he played in. That's one of the best 3 dunks of the year so far that we've seen are Tommy Vaughn's put back against Middletown at DeSalle's Icebreaker. Avion Matthews going up over the defender at the slam dunk to the beach, and Obi Coleman's one-handed jam down at the not the Diamond State, the Governor's Challenge. So we got 3 Dunk of the Year candidates. You guys that can dunk, you gotta give us some more because those are the top 3 right off the rip. And yeah, I feel like those 4 teams are going to be the ones that not only fight for the Northern Division title, but I feel like there'll be a team that shocks somebody at some point in the state tournament. I don't think Dover making it to the Final Four would be a shock, but I feel like Poly, Cape, and Smyrna getting to the round of 16 or even the round of 8 would be one of those ones where it's like, wow, people didn't take them seriously enough. And that's what you need to be careful of during that time of year, because state tournament time, you either go 1-0 or you're going home. Those are the brass facts. On to the South, it looks like Laurel is head and shoulders above everybody else, especially getting Dontarius Jones back from Delmarva Christian and Corey Mumford back from Cross Christian Academy. Woodbridge and Delmar can make things interesting if they can hang around, but it looks like Laurel is going to be head and shoulders above everybody else, especially now that the football guys led by Kylie's Wilson are getting back into basketball shape. I feel like that is the Henlope and South is Laurel's to lose. Everybody else is going to have to, just kind of hope for an at-large spot in the tournament. On to our non-conference Catholic schools. Sal's is a team on a mission, and as talented as that team is, and with the bad taste in their mouth from the state tournament game last March, you have to be very leery of this team if you feel like this is a team that you can get over on, because I don't see that happening. Like, when you lose a state championship game by 36 points, it tends to humble you a little bit. And when I talked to Taylor Trevison when I was doing previews, he said, time will tell. He wasn't committed to saying that this team was going to be, a house of fire. And granted, they haven't looked like a house of fire totally, but they haven't looked bad either. They've looked pretty doggone good. So we'll find out about them in short order. They've got games against Tower Hill, Caravel, Middletown, Sanford, Howard. The second half of that schedule is loaded. I mean, Sal's plays a loaded schedule anyway, but they're playing the best of the best, at least from a northern Newcastle County perspective, second half of the year. So we'll find out a lot about Sal's very quickly. Speaking of Caravel, that is another talented team you should watch out for with guys like John Clemens, Dom Wyatt, and Miles White. Those 3 make a very nice 3-headed monster. I think, though, February and March is where Caravel's time of atonement will be, because they've had like the 16-4s, the 17-3s, the 15-5s, only to be upset in the early rounds of the tournament. If they can at least get to the quarterfinals, I feel like they're a safe bet for the Final Four, because the way they play, as aggressive as those guys are on offense and as swarming as they are on defense, because they've got their share of glue guys that play football and baseball that can dial it down just enough to play some fair basketball. So I feel like Caravel is another team that everybody should watch out for. It looks like they'll be, another one of those teams that gets a bye and, has one of those, 15-5, 16-4, 17-3 type records. But the tournament is where we'll fairly judge them. And we'll move on to the girls now, starting with Flight A. St. George's and Appo, that game when they play each other, I think it's February 17th, if I'm not mistaken. Feels like that'll be the Flight A championship game. But Hudson and Middletown are 2 teams that are young but very talented. And Hudson has always been well coached because Chris Jones has been doing this forever, it feels like. And he does this every year. He's got 9th graders, 10th graders, 11th graders coming in, and this, the 11th graders already there, but 9th and 10th graders coming in is like, oh, wow. This Hudson team is just going to be so young, they're not going to be able to compete. And then the next thing you know, they're like 12-7 or 13-8, 13-5 or whatever, and they're in the hunt for a state tournament berth. Middletown, they are very well coached by Brendan Mann as well. Sanaa Savage is one of the best post players nobody's really talking about. That team has a couple of young players that are really good, and if they can string together some wins, I think they missed the tournament by like a fraction of a point last year at 9-11. If they can get to 11-9 or 12-8, they're a bet for the state tournament, and depending on the matchup, they could win a first-round game. But I feel like St. George's and Appo are the 2 teams that are head and shoulders above those other 2. And when they play each other, that'll likely decide who wins Flight A. Flight B girls, AI looks to be the runaway, but I don't think we can discount Howard. Curtis Clack, once again, one of the better coaches, boys or girls in the state, because he gets the most out of his girls. It was so funny because I watched them play Middletown, and of course they won that game 53-49. And he got teed up, and Clack really isn't an aggressive guy. He's not loud. He's not boisterous. I mean, he talks to his girls. I mean, he calls out plays and everything, but I've never seen him argue with an official like that. And then when he got teed up, he called his girls over to the side and said, "I just got a technical foul for y'all. Finish this game." And of course, they went ahead and finished the game. They're not very tall. Howard maybe has one girl that's 5'7", and that's being generous. But they play very hard on defense, and the way they move the ball on offense is pretty good for a Flight B team, or a team that doesn't have like the horses or the talent that a Catholic or private school has. So Howard and AI, they play each other January 19th, I believe. So we'll find out a lot, not just about AI, but about Howard. But AI, that team feels like a team that could be one of those ones that pulls off a shock run to the quarterfinals or the Final Four. Lucky Price has talent to spare. My Trader, first team All-State candidate. Monty Woods, very good. Nyesha Jackson, that big three is a big three that could do a lot of damage against a lot of schools. So the only thing, again, I saw them play Tatnall on the stream, and Tatnall's the one thing that AI lacks is the one thing that Tatnall has, and that's a dominant post player. And of course, that's Emma Kirby. We'll talk more about Tatnall in a second. But yeah, it feels like AI wins Flight B. The rest of the way, it really depends on how well they can, coalesce with the newer players with their big three that they already have in place as we get to tournament time. But I feel like AI is a team that's going to win at least one tournament game, if not two. Independent conference. Sanford versus Tatnall. That's all you need to know. And Tatnall played Sanford really tough last year, and that was a Tatnall team that kind of snuck up on people, even though they were very good. Of course, they ended up making the Final Four for the first time in school history, but they played Sanford really well. In fact, they led Sanford the second time around down at their place, but Sanford went on one of those patented 9-0 runs to end the game where defense just took over. And that's where we'll find out about both teams, because obviously Marcus Thompson is going to have his girls playing against out-of-state talent that will, prepare them for a Tatnall or a Caravel or Ursuline or St. Elizabeth's. But those two feel like those are the ones that will make the most noise in the tournament. Maybe Friends pulls together a run, maybe Tower pulls together a run, but I don't see it. I honestly think it's just Sanford and Tatnall at this point for the independent title. And as far as state tournament goes, those are two teams that you could probably see in the Final Four once again this year. Diamond State girls, St. E's going to be the favorite again. They still have a nice big three of Styx Huggins, of Farrah White, and Sydney Hilliard, and Milan Paul in the junior guard has played very well in spurts. Once they all get together, put all on the same page, that's going to be a very tough team. Archmere still looks pretty good. 5-1. They've won, their bracket of the Viking Invitational. They play strong defense, and they just, again, as I've said in previous episodes, a Dan Pisani team don't know the meaning of the word quit. And it's not because they're not smart kids. They just don't quit. There will be times when you feel like you've got the foot on them. I talked to a parent, a Hodson parent, shout out my guy C-Dub, and I said, the Archmere girls under Dan Pisani remind me of my favorite Richard Pryor joke when it comes to Muhammad Ali. Because Ali used to beat up on everybody. God rest his soul, used to beat up on everybody back in the day, except for Joe Frazier. And without, making this anything less than a G-rated show, I'll just say that Richard Pryor said Ali could knock out anybody, but Joe Frazier would not lay down for Ali. Frazier would just lean on Ali, and Ali would like, say, get him off me, doggone. That's Archmere girls basketball. You may be able to stagger them at some points, but you'll never be able to knock them out. And that's the mark of a tough team and a coach that gets the most out of his players. And I feel like Archmere is going to be back where they always are, winning the state tournament game, possibly making the quarterfinals, maybe even the Final Four. I also feel like we don't want to discount Wilmington Charter, even though they graduated Emma Brown and a couple of other seniors. They still have some talent. They'll pull themselves together at some point. DMA is 4-2. And the big thing for DMA is, as I pointed out in the previews that I wrote on the website, they can be streaky. They were 6-0 to start the year last year. Then they lost 6 of their next 7. Then they won 6 of their last 8, whatever it was. They finished 12-8 and made the tournament. So being consistent is going to help DMA. I don't know if it's going to be enough to overtake St. E or Archmere. It'll probably be enough for a state tournament spot once again. And depending on the matchup, if they can get a home game, they absolutely can win. Henlopen North. Cape graduated a lot. Cape also brought in a lot. Pat Woods, as you know, he didn't make any promises, when we spoke regarding previews, but this team is going to be a team to watch out for in coming years because I think Jayon Lee is their only senior. Everyone else is either a sophomore, a freshman, or a junior. And the talent that resides within those classes, Amalia Fruitman is a guard, first-year guard, 6 foot. She can play very well. Faith Ray, who is going to be our girls player of the week for week 3. So, yeah. Oh, yeah, let me get that announcement out of the way. Cape Henlopen outvoted everybody for our players of the week for week 3. So, congratulations to Faith Ray and Drew Zimmerman of the boys for Cape, for Faith for Cape girls and Drew for Cape boys. They are our boys and girls players of the week for week 3. That will be posted on the website very shortly. That being said, this Cape team is probably still going to be the favorite to win the North, but Dover, Smyrna, and Sussex Tech appear to be very tough coming out early this season. I don't know if either one of those teams are ready to overtake Cape, but I feel like if 2 of them can get in the state tournament, possibly Dover and Smyrna for the most part, I feel like Smyrna is due because they have the talent, they have the coaching. They just need to get in the dance. And once you get in the dance, anything is possible. So Dover, Smyrna, and Cape, Sussex Tech, they had a hot start last year, then they kind of cooled off. It's going to be key for them, like I said about DMA, to develop some consistency and just win consistently. And if they can get in the tournament, they'll be good to go. I feel like they'll be a team that can win a game as well. Our non-conference Catholic teams, there's a lot to talk about because that's where most of the powers reside. That's where it's been since the beginning of time as far as girls basketball goes, honestly. Ursuline, good as advertised. 8-0 against competition from teams down to She Got Game, Shore Games, Diamond State, whoever you want to put in front of them. They haven't, they've done well. They've won. They're 8-0 for crying out loud. And when you're two, I won't say they're 2 best players, but I'll say they're 2 most known players, the 8th graders, and you still have, some upper class leadership, in terms of, Abby Grillo, Jordan Tate, Hannah Kelly, Shamira Marshall brothers, and Jasmine Wesley. That's not a team that you can take lightly at all. You might be able to key on Gigi and Taylor, but it's going to hurt you because everybody else on that team is good too. Skylar Bolden as well. So it's pick your poison. And John Noonan, who always gets the most out of his players anyway, has always been a great coach. But now that he's got a Ursuline team similar to the Ursuline teams of the earlier part of this century, with the Adriana Haas, the Alyssa Irons, the Maggie Connollys, this is going to be another tough team that no one really wants to see come tournament time. Obviously, they're going to be one of the favorites for the Final Four. I don't know if I'm ready to make them a state championship favorite yet, but as far as the Final Four goes, they're almost a shoo-in at this point. Caravel is probably another one of those teams. Of course, they have a new head coach, my guy Larry Banks. Speedy Wilson's on the team now. Pairing her with Josiah Crawford and Nia Price in the backcourt has proven to be very good for them. That's a 3-headed monster that can give you the buckets going, driving to the rim or knocking them down from the outside. And of course, they're all very just like, hands-on on well, not hands-on on defense, but just more like very tuned in to just ripping the ball from people. So Caravel is going to be a tough out as well. I don't know if I'm penciling them in as a Final Four team as of yet, but until somebody beats them, what did Ric Flair say? To beat a man, you got to beat the man. Well, to beat the champs, got to beat the champs. And right now, Caravel's still the champion until further notice. St. Mark's is another team you really got to watch out for, as far as terms of depth and talent. And they're 5-1. Their schedule was really going to tell coming down the second half how good they are because they've got Ursuline and St. E twice. That will tell you how good they are. If they can split those two, somehow, that's going to be a team to be reckoned with. But they should be able to, be pretty dominant against everybody else that they play, I feel like. Delmarva Christian and Red Lion are also 2 teams you can really watch out for. Delmarva Christian plays a suffocating brand of defense under Jedediah Roach. Red Lion has a scoring guard, Delaney Burrows, who can get 30 points a game whenever she darn well pleases. So everyone else on that team can play, and everyone else on that team can, provide a certain spark, whether it's defense or offense. So Red Lion's going to be a tough out as well. So those are your conference previews for 2023 as we get closer to the regular season. Wow, this took 30 minutes. It took longer than I thought it would. I thought I was, going pretty fast, but apparently I'm not. But I think what we should watch out for as we get into the nuts and bolts of this season is that there's no real favorite, no runaway favorite on either side. Like, yeah, you can say Sanford, Ursuline, Tatnall, and Caravel would be your top 4 girls teams pretty easily. But any given day, a St. Elizabeth's or a St. Mark's or a Woodbridge or AI DuPont could knock them off the pedestal. On the boys' side, I forgot to mention the Henlopen South. Why did I put, wow, I totally forgot about Seaford. Sorry, Seaford. It's Seaford and Laurel in the Henlopen South for the boys. What was I thinking? Seaford played as well as anybody down at the Governor. Wow. I thought I had written Seaford down when I was putting together my notes for this show. Wow. Sorry, Seaford. And Seaford was the team I picked to win the state tournament last year. And Seaford's one of my picks this year. See, this is what happens when you spend too much time on vacation. You're bound to forget something. And I forgot the Seaford Blue Jays. Not sure how I didn't think about the Seaford Blue Jays until the near end of the show. But now you have it. So now you can pick. Yeah, again, boys, you can pick any of the top 10 and anyone's top 10 on any given day. It could be Sal's. It could be Tower. It could be Seaford. It could be Appo. It could be Middletown. It could be Howard. It could be Appoquinimink. It could be anybody. Like, you can't, like, there are at least 8 to 12 teams that have a legit shot on the boys' side of winning the state championship. And it could be any one of those teams and you wouldn't be surprised. You just wouldn't. I think maybe the only surprise would be if it came out. I mean, anybody outside that top 8 is a surprise to me. Caravel too. So yeah, that top 8 of Sally's, Tower, Seaford, Howard, Appo, Middletown, Caravel, Sanford. Take your pick, man. Take your pick. But that's really what we have at this point. And that is how we'll close the show because I'm starting to ramble a little bit. And I don't like to do that. I like to keep you guys interested and intrigued and with no dark spots or what's the word I'm looking for? See, this is, again, too much vacation time. I spent too much time on break. I've been enjoying myself too much. But I got to get back into the groove because sure enough, January 3rd, it all begins again. And I'm very much looking forward to giving you guys the best high school basketball coverage possible. So if you want to follow us on the socials, I will put those in the description below. I will also link our website, our Facebook page, and our email address if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. Once again, thank y'all for checking out Holding Court. Hope you guys enjoyed your holiday break. January 3rd, we're right back to it. So see y'all around. Have a good one.